Another beautiful day. What a blessing. So, wanted to talk about something a little bit different, all right? Something that I have observed, especially when really listening to a lot of witness accounts of Sasquatch and quote-unquote Bigfoot, of these creatures, of the different types, despite the different types that they are. I've heard a lot about this, and that is how much that these entities, these beings, actually spend on the ground. And I mean on the ground. Not in trees, not just walking on the ground, but connected with the earth itself, on the ground. Now, I've said before that I believe that they're trees, possibly of tree origin, related to trees, or plant-based, maybe chlorophyll for blood, things of that nature, some additive that makes them a little different. Nonetheless, I'm starting to listen to a lot of accounts, and you can find this out, and some of the Bigfoot researchers themselves that say they've had encounters. You know, they really listen to what they say about how often these creatures are seen on the ground, laying down on the ground, doing what's called a belly crawl. They're seen doing that quite a bit. And another one that is called a spider crawl, which is where their arms are elongated out and they're on their tips of their fingers, walking like a spider. They say it's the most odd to see something 8 feet tall, 7 feet tall doing that. Really throws you for a loop, apparently. I guess it would, you know. So that's another one. So the spider crawl. I've heard another one. I can't think of that brother's name, but he's a pretty well-known researcher. But he talks about when he saw one in a habitat area, one coming toward him, walking not like a spider, but with its elbows out inside, and come in like that. And people have talked about these beings walking, doing this for hundreds of yards. That is inhuman completely. That's more of a contortionist move or something. And he said this thing, the brother said this one thing coming up on him, like 200 feet towards him, and it went back the same way and over a deal going backwards the same way, just going backwards like that. That's unreal. And also, speaking of that, I read other things about several places that are where alphas are seen just standing in amongst trees, just standing there for no real apparent reason, standing there looking a certain direction or something. And I think some of this takes us back, and if you start looking at some of the Toltec stories about some of the warriors that buried themselves within the earth. So I think that's just maybe getting more connected to that, and whatever it is that maybe makes them plant-based and more tree-based is somehow connecting them to the ground. This also includes something else I'll throw in there, how often they're seen laying like trees. People walk by them thinking that they're trees and don't even know what it is till it gets up and moves or something. So that's another way that they're using this for not just to, and what extremes they'll go to so that they aren't seen by people. All right, and that's one of them they'll do. They'll get on the ground and maybe getting the ground, scoping out an area and laying down and somehow and being on the ground itself hours before the people even get there, or being there the whole time they're there and never moving. How long they might be able to observe the power of silence. Just things to be thought to think of. And some of these are techniques that go back to the warriors that were from the cycle before. So it says something about who they really might be. And I just want to think that wanted to be just need to be acknowledged, how close that they often are associated being on the ground themselves. In that way. And if you want to think about things, talking about things being plant-based, the plants and the trees are from the ground up. So how much does that have to do with this? Hey, it's just food for thought. I don't have the answers, but it's something I hear when I keep listening to all these people that have had these encounters. You can research that yourself. Start looking up and start listening to a lot of these. You've got hundreds and hundreds of accounts you can get on YouTube right now. Listen to some of them and hear how how many of these people start talking about they were on the ground, laying on the ground, cloaked or not seen or moving in a peculiar way, almost fearful way on the ground. Just thinking about also, oh, something else I'll throw in there that I find interesting. A lot of times they're seen on all fours, of course, which we see other primates do. But for them, it's more of like a football stance, taking off like a football player. That's seen quite a bit. And then moving on fours quick, but moving more like a football player and taking off like that. And that comes into those knuckle prints. Several people have knuckle prints as well as they get these footprints as well. So I'll try to put up some pictures that I've seen on the internet of knuckle prints. But I think that puts another little aspect to it of the mobility that these creatures are capable of. We're not dealing with just monkey apes. We're dealing with something else. At least some of these species of them. Just food for thought, if nothing else. Thanks for please subscribe. Peace.